Let's move on to my second trend. That's looking at Chris Paul. If you go to numberFire's team rankings page, the power rankings right now, you'll notice that one team is on top with a nerd rating of 95.6, and the second best team is at 76.4. That team on top is the Los Angeles Clippers by a huge margin, and based on how Chris Paul has played, it makes sense that they would be there. So my second trend is Chris Paul's overall effectiveness and well-roundedness this season. He is currently ranked second in the league in offensive rating and fourth in defensive rating. So he's top 4 in both categories. Rudy Gobert is the only other player in the top 15 in both, and he is currently ranked 15th in offensive rating and 8th in defensive rating. So no one really has come close to what Chris Paul has done overall this season. Looking at the Clippers, they have a 116.7 offensive rating and 94.8 defensive rating this year when Chris Paul has been on the court. The offensive rating it's still above average at 108.1 without him, but their defensive rating shoots up to 107.9, so the difference in defense, or the net rating for Chris Paul, is just kind of absurd this year. If we look back to last year, we saw similar splits, just not nearly as drastic. Their offensive rating was 114.5 with him on, and their defensive rating was 103.3. But with Chris Paul off the floor last year, their defensive rating only went up to 106.1. So he wasn't making this huge difference that he has made so far this year. Their offensive rating was 99.7, so a bit bigger dip there. If we're looking at guys' usage so far this year with Chris Paul on the floor, Blake Griffin is at, their efficiency. Blake Griffin's at 1.23 FanDuel points per minute. DeAndre Jordan is 0.92, and JJ Redick is 0.83. If we're looking back to last year, Chris Paul averaged 1.28 FanDuel points per minute, but he has amped that up to 1.40 this year. And while you might think that'd be taking away from Blake Griffin because Chris Paul has been so efficient, Griffin's actually up too. He was at 1.17 FanDuel points per minute last year, and he's at 1.23 this year. The only guy who's down really is DeAndre Jordan. He was above 1 last year. He's at 0.92 so far this year. So it seems as if Chris Paul's play, both offensively and defensively, is helping not just himself, but the other assets on the floor as well.